Hello, I'm Robert Lloyd Griffiths and welcome to Walking the Talk, the podcast from Call of the Wild. In each episode, I take leaders out for a walk in nature where the conversation flows more freely, the insights are more natural, and we get to the heart of what leadership really means. So lace up your boots and join me as we walk and talk. Today's guest is someone who has played an active role in helping to shape the Welsh business landscape for many years. Dan Langford is the Managing Director of the Skills Centre, one of the UK's leading construction training businesses, and he's also the co-founder and chair of Wales Week London and Wales Week Worldwide, the annual programme of events that celebrates and showcases Wales on the global stage. With decades of experience as a marketing leader, a champion of Welsh business, and a board member across some of Wales's most influential organisations, Dan is a true driving force in our nation's story of growth and innovation. Dan, welcome to the podcast.
Hello.
Should we go for a walk?
Let's go for a walk.
So Dan, we're about to embark on our walk up to the Cribarth, where regular listeners of this podcast will have joined us before. Now, this isn't your first time walking up to the Cribarth, because I remember just after the pandemic, we walked it together. I think it was the first time many of us had ventured out after being kept indoors for so long. Do you remember that?
I remember it very well, yeah. I reckon there must have been about 30 or so of us. Net walking.
Networking it was.
Is what it was named. And so about 30 or so people from various sort of businesses and organisations. We all got together and networked whilst we walked. It was fabulous. I remember we stopped for lunch and we did. Yeah, it was a great occasion. Yeah.
But I think that was you sorting everybody out to doing that. I think that was an example of you bringing people together, and that's kind of been a bit of a theme through your career of engaging with businesses, engaging with individuals, bringing them together. Do you think that's part of the Langford way of working? Probably. Well, everything's better together, I suppose, isn't it? If you're not in the room, you don't get hear of the opportunities. If you're not in the room, you don't pick up on things. You're not introduced to people. You don't extend your connections. So getting people into the sort of proverbial room as much as possible. It's always worked well for me, and if I can bring others along and other people benefit from that sort of approach, then it's great. Yeah. And that's sort of been your mantra with Wales Week, and we'll come on to Wales Week because I want to explore it in a lot more detail. But you've had the success of Wales Week, which is now in its 10th year on the world stage, and we'll come on to it. But it's important, isn't it, that people do collaborate, and that's, as I said, that's maybe a golden thread through your career.
Yeah, that. Wales Week is all about people coming together and making something much bigger happen. And, and if everyone involved benefits in some way, sometimes in intangible ways and other times in very tangible ways, if they can all benefit and enjoy the journey together, then, it proves to be worthwhile. And I think it's testament that it must work for most because we're in our 10th year.
Indeed. So I want to go back. We'll come on to Wales Week a little bit more in later during the podcast, but I want to go back and take you back. Perhaps, maybe you won't remember, but for somebody so passionately, or someone who is such a passionate advocate of Wales, you're passionate about business, you're passionate about bringing people together. You must be an honorary Welshman by now because you're not born in Wales, were you?
No, I wasn't. I do get that sort of phrase. You must be a naturalised Welshman by now, Dan. Which I quite enjoy, I have to admit. I was actually born in Durham, but only lived there for a matter of months before spending the first half of my childhood, if you like, in Hertfordshire, and then moved up to the west coast of Scotland until sort of A-level age, and moved down to Kent then, finished my schooling in Kent, with a Scottish accent.
Yeah.
And then came across to Cardiff to go to the art college in 1987, I think it was. And so I've been here since then. And I've loved more or less every minute of living in Cardiff, quite frankly, and it's very much my home. Yeah, had a Welsh home here ever since. 2 Welsh language children. Yeah, massive fan of living here and promoting what is a great part of the world with some amazing people, for sure.
And in terms of those early days, you mentioned a couple of different places where you lived. I mean, your dad was a big influence, obviously, certainly in terms of your interest in marketing and your flair in marketing. I mean, he was a hugely successful marketeer in his own right.
Yeah, he was. He worked mainly in travel throughout his career. Ended up as a marketing director at P&O Ferries. But yeah, I mean, I always, from an early age, was very interested in what he actually did for a living, and he'd always take the time to explain stuff that he was doing. And I didn't know then, of course, over those early years, how much of an influence it had on me. But when I was getting to the stage of wondering what I would do when I leave school, then his work was very much front of mind. I want to do what my dad does. It was a bit like that, And I think also the approach he had to his work, when I reflect now, I think I've probably taken a lead from him on that, and he was very hardworking, very engaging with other people. He was, I didn't realise it then, but now I know he's, used and developed networks very well, and took his responsibilities pretty seriously as, as a business figure recognised in his particular field and his particular sector, of encouraging others, helping the sector generally and things like that,
So really, I mean, a dad, but also a mentor in terms of where your career has developed.
Massively, but you'll never know that.
I know, sadly.
Oh yeah, so a number of years ago, I think it might have been after I'd been to a Welsh Taverners event.
Okay.
I thought I would contact the Scottish Taverners, because growing up in Scotland, my dad was heavily involved in the Taverners in Scotland.
Yeah.
So I emailed them saying, are there any records of meetings or anything that he might have been in, or anything at all? It would just be interesting to see a copy. And the gentleman got back to me after a week or so, saying, I remember your father very well.
Yeah.
He set up the Taverners in Scotland.
Did he?
He was our first chair, and he set it up, and we're very indebted to him and everything else. And really struck a chord with me, really.
I think he was big pals with some of our listeners will remember Nicholas Parsons.
Oh, one of his very close friends. Through that, Ronnie Corbett, Michael Aspel, Bernard Cribbins, Dickie Davis, and a lot of sort of Scottish TV personalities and things. Absolutely. Yeah.
So they would have been regular visitors to the Langford home in the early days?
Not regular phone callers.
Okay.
Of course, none of them lived in Scotland, except Nicky P, as he was affectionately known. Yeah. He would have been one that we would have seen on occasion for sure, outside of any work remit.
Yeah. And you talked about the creativity side of things in terms of your choice of degree. Tell us a bit about that.
I just wasn't any good at anything else, Rob. I guess a lot of it was linked to my earlier comment about what direction my career was going to be. Yeah. I remember going for an interview for various different art colleges and saying, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to get into marketing. And, I'm sure there are other people there saying, I want to be an artist or a teacher or something. But for me, that's what I wanted to do. I wasn't going to be the sort of person that was, I didn't even consider it a business degree. Right. I guess I wanted to do something I perceived at the time to be more fun.
And has it been fun?
Yeah. I mean, well, look what we're doing now.
Yeah.
Glorious day.
We're trying to catch a breath, I think, Dan. That's what we're trying to do. I'm hoping you're going to speak a bit more, because I'm kind of like I'm wishing I'd done a bit of running this week earlier.
But yes, it absolutely. You look back on things that you've been involved with, the people that you have got to know and continue to have as friends. I mean, it's massive fun, frankly. But the key is trying to do it together. So when things are hard, when we've had dips in the economy and, of course, everything around COVID, we're in it together, I guess, because you've built such good, strong networks of people and friends that,
And that's really important to you, isn't it? The networks. I think it should be important to everybody, really. But the networks that you create, that you can call upon, you can work with, hugely important aspect of the way in which you do business.
Yeah, I mean it works two ways. It's nice to be able to think, I can ring so and so, and they can advise me or help me, whatever my situation is. But also the other way, that you'll receive calls from people saying, Dan, can you help with this, or can you put me in touch with so and so, So, yeah, I just think it's an informal, softer way, but a really important way of doing business, really. And all sorts comes from it. Like I was saying earlier when we were talking about Wales Week, that if you're in the room, if you're doing stuff together, this phrase I use a lot of the time, in the room, then you just don't know what can happen. And a lot that's happened to me and for me has happened because I just happened to be in the room.
Yeah. So Dan, we've come up one of those steepest little bits. I think it's always worse when you start off. Bit like life, really, isn't it? The views are outstanding, aren't they? I mean, it's incredible. I'm looking around and down to the Swansea Valley down there, and of course this Cribarth, known as the Sleeping Giant, with where we are 100 years ago or so, being covered with workers mining the stone, sort of a light stone, rotten stone it's called, used in polishing other stones, I feel, as part of the Industrial Revolution. So, where you wouldn't really recognise it, or those who were here 100 years ago wouldn't recognise it today, but the beauty is still outstanding, isn't it?
It's stunning. It's absolutely stunning. And in this awful weather, it's not too bad.
Yeah. Listeners, let me just tell you that it's absolutely boiling hot and very warm today, and the views are particularly outstanding. But it's a good place, Wales, isn't it, Dan?
Yeah, it's not bad. And it's it's not bad, is it? And it is easy to promote on that basis.
It's easy to promote.
Easy to promote. We just need to do it often.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's just a remarkable place. And any time you meet people, whether it's in London, elsewhere in the UK, but even internationally, it's scenes like this, and frankly, it's the welcome that they get from Welsh people. Yeah. Those are the first two things that are always on their minds.
Yeah.
And we clearly, we spend a lot of time focusing on the economy and inward investment and trade and all sorts of things. But it's some of these softer factors, about, to me, brand Wales is how you feel about your engagement with something that's Welsh. Yeah. And, if you feel welcome, if you feel valued, if you like, if you feel comfortable, you feel happy, if there's lots of good resonation all the time with your experience with either visiting Wales or speaking to Welsh people, then that is brand Wales. You can build from that, and when you then put that into sort of a business brand Wales, you're looking at the same soft values again. It's not necessarily what's the sort of technical offer that we may or may not have, but a lot of it is the service around it. So how responsive and communicative we are. As a society and as a culture, Wales is brilliant at that.
Yeah.
And we just got to make sure we do that in business as well. So when that call comes into the country saying, I want to locate a factory here or an office here or develop some new technology and bring some IP here, we've got to be responsive. Yeah. We've got to show them that we care, because we do if we bump into them in a pub. or bump into them in a restaurant in London, straight away people think that we care and that we're interested in them. We've got to do that at a business and a political level as well.
And do you think that's all about leadership, isn't it, surely? I mean, in terms of business leaders, political leaders, leaders in civic society have got to be taking the lead. And if they don't, and if we don't, then who?
Yeah, and taking the lead, though, is also helping others take lead and be accountable and letting people, in their own ways, do the right thing. So if they're responding to potential new business or they're responding to a new opportunity, is their leaders giving them all the tools and the support and the confidence that they can do it. And it's not by rote, it's not by process or, computer says yes or no. It's real people being able to make considered judgments on a situation in real time. And in that way, and even if they've got to say no, let's say no quickly. Let's not keep a potential opportunity hanging on if it's not right for Wales or right for that potential investor. Let's explain no, say no and explain it straight away. Because that way they go away with a good feeling for brand Wales.
Yeah. I'm interested in the whole concept of leadership, and of course this is one of the elements that these podcasts are all about. I mean, in terms of your own personal journey, you started off, we've mentioned it, at UWIC, doing a creative degree. Then you stayed and you were involved with a student union.
Yeah, I was president of the Students' Union for a couple of years, actually. Yeah.
And in terms of that mindset that you had of being, obviously, in a leading role within the student society then, how did that impact your future jobs and experiences?
Well, I think what it might have demonstrated, and this is like a therapy session, Robert, in one way, because I'm now thinking back on things in a way that I've never really thought back on them. I mean, linked to that, typically growing up, I played a lot of football, for example.
Yeah.
And by hook or by crook, I always end up being captain of the teams I played for.
Okay.
So there's clearly something in me that is comfortable with taking a front-leading role as part of a broader team. And maybe, therefore, over all those years, in sports organisations, student president, and then going into a professional career, something perhaps I'm able to enable others to do stuff.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that, which I'm not quite sure how that sounded, but the reason I say that is the latter parts of my career, when I've had sort of director roles, I feel like I haven't done much, but my teams have done so much. Yeah. And I wonder if there's something in that you've got to make the right appointment. So if I've got good people working for me and they've got the confidence and support and the tools they need, principally through me, but of course through the rest of the business, to do what's expected of them, that somehow those things have been happening, because I can't think of a team that's worked for me that hasn't been brilliant.
That's good. That's good. And in terms of that sort of career personal development, I mean, you after being president of the Students' Union, you decided to stay at UWIC and to head up the marketing team.
I didn't head it up straight away. I went for a job. It was around the time where universities in Wales, well, the whole of the UK, were going through incorporation for the first time. Wales was a year behind England. And this word marketing sort of came into structures, perhaps in a way that it didn't before. And Cardiff Institute for Higher Education, as it was then known, needed to have some sort of marketing support. So I talked a bit about it at various management meetings as the student president. So maybe I didn't really know what I was on about, but I was certainly vocal. And so a job advertised, I went for it and got it as some sort of junior marketing role in this new external affairs department. And then, I don't know, I guess about 11 years later, I left there as Director of Marketing Communications, yeah.
But it seems to me that you, when you find something that you believe in and you have a passion for, and clearly you did as president, that you had unfinished business. And you don't like to leave until you've done what you set out to do.
Do you know, you're absolutely right. Every job I've had and every organisation I've worked for, I've loved dearly.
Yeah.
And not by design, it's just happened, okay? And I think this might go back a bit to my father. we owned his businesses as a family. When working for P&O, this international business, we felt it was ours. That's what my dad seemed to bring home, that we all really felt this. Before that he worked for the Glasgow Herald up in Scotland and some travel firms up there and so on. And we knew all about it. This was part of our life. And when I left UIC as was, after about 11 years in the marketing team, I was sort of delighted in one way that when I was explaining to my son, who was, 8 or 9 at the time, Dad's changing a job and where I was going, and he started crying because it was like, but UIC is part of our house, it's part of our home. And so that point about, absolutely own it, totally. You would cut me in two and it would say UIC, and then I was at Acorn then for a number of years, cut me in two, it would say Acorn for sure. And I was really proud everywhere I've worked and where I work now, that I walk in a room, people know it's not just me that's walked in. I brought the business with me. Oh, here comes that guy from UIC. Here comes Acorn. Here comes now the Skill Centre. And I want that to happen.
And it seems to me as well that really interesting comment about cutting you in two, but also dealing with people at a larger level. The university. Massive amounts of people, huge departments, commercial departments, academic departments, working closely, bringing people together, trying to collaborate and create some sort of togetherness ethos. That defines, to me, what your career development has been about.
I can't pretend I don't want everyone to get on. Can't we all just get on? Can't we all just get on? And that way, people work out reasons how we can do things, not reasons why we can't do things. Yeah. And that's a real bugbear of mine, that this is the way we've always done it, or there's no way we can do this because. Well, let's flip that completely and work out, if we are going to do it, how would we go about it? And we can persuade ourselves to do things from there on that are out of our comfort zone, that might stretch us professionally, might stretch our brands, our businesses in different ways. But, if you're not stretching, if you're not growing, what are you doing?
So you mentioned, Dan, your time at Acorn. You were there a number of years, obviously dealing with the ambitions of many people in Wales and beyond, looking for that next step. And what was that next step like for you?
Well, Acorn was just an amazing time in my career, for sure. In terms of the business, the reputation it had, or has rather, and the type of work it got involved in, the extent of the work that it gets involved in, the support it gave to so many different community organisations and charities and stuff. Most of which we never got publicity for. We didn't target doing that at all. And the people there, just a brilliant bunch of people, right across the business. So that was fantastic for me, and that relationship stemmed from networking, if you like, for UIC. Yeah. And I had an opportunity to look after the boss at Acorn, Matt, who set the business up. Yeah. And after a period of time, I ended up joining the business, and it was just a brilliant journey. How I grew professionally, and I didn't know anything about business per se when I was there. I'd had this career in a university, but so I learnt so much on the hoof. I had to as well on the hoof about how a successful entrepreneurial private sector organisation functions and grows. And we had fantastic growth. I think when I arrived, we probably had about 12 high street branches, and I think we were around 28 million turnover. And when I left, it was about 120 mil turnover in the UK, but we also had about another sort of 40 million turnover business in Australia, and with little pockets around the world. So it was a fantastic thing to be part of, and still got, I've got fantastic relationships with people that have since left but are still there as well,
I think it's when you were at Acorn that we first met, and what my observation is from your time there, and certainly towards the latter time, is they were flexible in their approach with enabling you to do other things as well, which ultimately would benefit Acorn, but also had a much wider hinterland of opportunities that they were interested in.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And don't get me wrong, Uwick was like that as well. My direct boss at Uwick at the time was Professor Anthony Chapman, the Vice Chancellor. And you know, he was really supportive and, you know, get out there, do this, try that, don't worry if it doesn't quite work. And, you know, gave me, you know, I had actually a couple of bosses at Uwick. The FD, Martin Warren, was my boss for a couple of years, and all of them, I would use this phrase, would give me enough rope to hang myself. You know, they had the confidence that I would put everything into my approach into delivering a project or an initiative of some kind, and they would back me. And, you know, mostly everything came off, but I had the confidence that if it didn't, we'll just brush ourselves off and move on. And that's the same with Acorn, that Matt and other colleagues on the board, you know, massively supportive. They were happy that if we can get out into the big wide world with the Acorn message, you know, they totally accepted there are other ways of doing it than normal above the line sort of marketing activity or whatever.
So Dan, just before we carry on, if we look to right in front of us, there's the pathway where the old trams used to go up and down carrying the limestone and the limestone grit that we used in such a variety of different ways as part of the Industrial Revolution. So I think part of it was used in the copper mining or copper production sector or industry, and that's why it was called Copperopolis.
There we are, you see. You learn something new.
I think I might have that right. I think so. I think it's from memory. I'm sure somebody will correct me if I'm wrong.
Hi, it's Beck here from Call of the Wild. While Robert and our guests take a quick breather, I wanted to tell you a little bit about something close to our hearts at Call of the Wild, networking. We know the best conversations don't happen sat around a table. They happen when you're out walking side by side. That's why we created networking. Short, insightful leadership sessions combined with relaxed networking as you walk through the beautiful Bannau Brycheiniog. It's networking done differently, more natural, more memorable, and a lot more enjoyable. It's certainly my favourite way to network. If you'd like to find out more about hosting a networking day for your own team or your favourite clients, just get in touch with us at info@callofthewild.co.uk.
If we just go back to what we were talking about in terms of your time at Acorn, and I think that you were outlining the fact that the guys there gave you the opportunity to do other things, and that was to the benefit of the business, but also had a much wider perspective, which enabled you to have a much wider perspective and allowed you to parallel things that you were doing. And that's where I think maybe, from my memory, is where Wales Week started all those years ago. Is that
Yeah,
fair?
Yeah. I mean, it was almost certainly at the from a leadership position in Acorn. You know, other people would also be involved in other things, other organisations, and advising businesses and so on. So there, you know, it was quite that sort of entrepreneurial and way. You know, it was very much driven from the boss downwards. Yeah. So for me, being part of that, it's, you know, now particularly I realise it was an amazing opportunity, you know, to be part of an organisation that was growing quickly, was successful, was great reputation, and still at the top of the business. The boss is giving you flexibility and showing through his own actions that there's more you can be doing. So that was great. And you know, I'd been going back and forth to London for a few years for Acorn, you know, sort of businessy type events and stuff. And then when I approached him one day, he said, "Look, I'm thinking of setting this thing up called Wales Week London. You know, and Acorn could be the sort of founding partner." And you know, and he was, you know, his response was, "Well, crack on then. Let's see how you get on." You know.
Yeah. And it was literally as simple as that.
Yeah.
You obviously saw a need. You identified an opportunity, and you went for it. How did you go about it? What did you do first of all?
Well, you know, the conversation 1 or 2 days before that was with my co-founder Mike Jordan, and we were coming back from London after an event or whatever it was, and we discussed it then, and thought, well, why not, and said, Mike, need a website and a brand really quickly. And he said he'd sort it, of course, because he runs a branding agency. And then after getting the go-ahead from the boss in work, we went and met with the Secretary of State for Wales and his team. Then it was Alan Cairns. Yeah. And he brought more or less his whole team into the room to hear about our proposal. And then similarly we met with the former Director of Marketing, Mary Stevens at the Welsh Government. Yeah. And mentioned it to her and said, we're thinking of doing this. How your two governments get involved and leverage it really interests us, and can we count on your support? And in different ways, both the governments said yes. And then 3 weeks later, Mike had the website, right, which was fantastic, yeah. And a brand. And 3 weeks after that, we launched, yeah, which was in early December, in the office of the Secretary of State for Wales in Whitehall. Yeah. And we had about 80 people there, so we filled the room. And on our website was about 15, 16 events already. Yeah. But all those events were happening anyway in London, because they've been happening every year. Yeah. Okay, so London Welsh Rugby Club might be doing something. The grand, fantastic big event in Guildhall has been happening for decades. Mm-hmm. So we hadn't created anything new at that point, except a brand and a place where all these events could centrally be promoted, and people could find out what's going on and book places. Mm-hmm. And we weren't charging anyone for it. The whole thing isn't set up in that way. So that was the beginning of December. By the time we got to early Feb, I think we had 56 events up. Okay. And nearly all of those were brand new things where people were saying, I love the sound of this, can I be a part of it? And we're saying, yeah, absolutely. And then this year, like last year and the year before, over 130 events over that 2 week period. So, it's reached a peak point perhaps, but it's not abating in any way. It's still going. And
So give me and outline to our listeners some of the highlights over the last 10 years. You could probably go on for another hour or so, but you've got free reign. What are your things or your events that stick out in memory? I've got a couple, but I'm sure you have many. And
I guess first and foremost, what sticks out is that we more or less grow, but we're certainly consistent every year. People, organisations come back year after year after year. And our KPIs are quite simple, really. It's about people voting with their feet. If they all decided not to, we know we're not onto something here and it's time to stop. Yeah. And indeed, when we were in the thick of the pandemic, we did approach a lot of our event organisers to say, look, we're thinking we might have to give it a miss this year. And without exception, all the ones we spoke to replied, no, we're already working on our online event. And we had 70 online events. And it completely took us aback. We didn't expect it at all. And for Mike and I, those are the things that are the highlights. It's when we get a nice bit of feedback. It's when we hear of some conversion, maybe in a business sense, or we just hear that an event is full or oversubscribed. Those are the little indicators that make us think, great, we're really glad we're doing this. And that happens every year. There's lots of that every year. And then the types of organisations. I mean, take Call of the Wild, for instance, and we take the American Embassy, and we take the Wales office, and we take PwC. These are brands, these are institutions, And
the Old Bailey.
Sorry?
Let's not forget the Old Bailey.
The Old Bailey, which we can come on to in a minute. In terms of venues, some of the venues have been fantastic, And so they're all special in their own way. And the fact that they back us and participate, and year after year they're involved in Wales Week by hook or by crook in whatever way is just fantastic. And still we'll get anywhere between 12 and 14,000 people attend the events over the 2 weeks, and that for us is brilliant. And then then when we're looking at the performance we have online, the engagement, not just the reach, but the genuine engagement that we attract, and a lot of the time now, not through our own deliberate activity, is a sense of we're still doing our own hard work to promote, because ultimately Wales Week is about a promotion of all its component parts, but it's now built a life outside of that where everyone's promoting, and we're piggybacking that all the time, because it's all to do with our brand and what we've brought together. So those are the sorts of things that are really rewarding for us. I mean, in terms of events, you mentioned the Old Bailey. I mean, that was what a coup that was, and obviously you were very central personally in making that event happen. But to be in court number one, and in the four High Court judges' chairs, I think we had the head of IOD UK, CBI UK, FSB UK, and Chambers UK. I mean, you get four of those in a room without a Prime Minister is pretty impressive. And then our good friend Sean Barry, business editor of the Western Mail, was in the big high chair, and he was holding court. And then all of us were out in the stalls, and all these business people from Wales and London. And I mean,
it was a splendid day, and it was. I mean, I often laugh about it. I was kind of hosting that day from the witness box, where think where some inglorious individuals have in the past been given evidence from, and our sponsors were in the jury. Yeah, in the jury seats.
It was all so neat, actually. Yeah, it was fantastic, and we've had. I mentioned the American Embassy. We couldn't do it this year, unfortunately, but every year for the last few years, the American ambassador has hosted about 200 people at the residence in Regent's Park, which is a terrific event. And and these are American and Welsh and London-based business people, and a few politicians. And you don't get invites to places like that often, and we do the same with the Swiss embassy and the French embassy, and we had the Slovak this year, and the Maltese is lined up for next year. We've been in the Canadian High Commission, Hungarian embassy for the last 3 years, and this is just fantastic. And it's all about they want to commemorate around the time of our National Day. They want to commemorate their relationship with Wales through cultural and business purposes. It's just a really nice thing to be part of, and yeah.
And there's been so many amazing events. And I particularly remember one of my own personal favourites was having the amazing opportunity of interviewing Sir Gareth Edwards in the House of Lords for Call of the Wild on his views on Wales, on leadership. I mean, these things just would never happen.
And think about your audience. I mean, you were packed.
Packed.
Hugely
memorable. It seems to me, though, that the key thing about Wales Week is that, yes, these things could happen, but they won't happen without somebody pulling it together, someone delivering and offering leadership. And that's been your role, really, isn't it? You've been central to actually making things happen. We're very good in Wales sometimes at getting a group of people together to actually decide on a strategy or a policy or a way forward, but somebody has to drive it and make it happen, and you made it happen.
Yeah, Wales Week has made that happen.
Yeah. But you as an individual, with Mike and with your team, you have to have somebody driving it. Wales Week has made it happen, but you are instrumental in making those things happen, and that's a huge achievement. Yeah,
I mean, that's, very kind of you to say so, and we know it is an achievement. For sure it is, to be embarking on our 10th successive year, and bearing in mind we do it on a voluntary basis. It's not our jobs. So yeah, it takes a bit to pull it together, and the ironic thing about it is when we actually get into Wales Week, we're so shattered by then. It's hard to go and enjoy everything, but yeah, that's.
But I think it happens, and I think our listeners will have picked up in your reticence in taking any. Glory is the wrong word, but taking anything out of it that it belongs to you, because that different people might have done it differently, and it's been all about them, but you're really keen that it's all about the events and not about individuals.
Oh, it totally is. I mean, all the organisations that put on events, and whether they're our sponsors and partners or they're not, they're just event organisers, they're putting in tremendous amount of effort and resource and time and energy. And I know they're doing it for a purpose. They may have tickets to sell, if it's an arts or a sports or an entertainment type thing. But they've chosen to do it during Wales Week. They want to be part of something that's bigger about Wales in London at that time. And, so that's really nice. But they're the ones putting all that effort in. We've created something that facilitates it, I guess, and encourages it and supports it and promotes it. But they're putting those hard yards in. And that's what makes it. Wales Week is that. It is a collaboration of all those component parts,
And in terms of expanding Wales Week, now it's a global entity. How has that developed?
We've had approaches on and off over the years typically from someone who might be Welsh, who works for a business somewhere abroad, or someone who's involved very closely in a diaspora society somewhere abroad, saying, we do a lot of stuff around St David's Day. Could we be part of the Wales Week movement? Yeah. And you help us grow it. And of course, we're delighted with that. So that happened quite organically. So some years, I think 2020, we were in around 20 different locations above, as well as London around the world. Yeah. Most years, we're typically, I guess, about a dozen places. And that's people, I guess, a bit like Mike and myself, who are happy to volunteer their time. We give them the assets, the tools that they need. We give them advice and stuff. We make introductions to them, for them to potential partners or sponsors or others that might be good to collaborate with. And then they roll with it. And again, that's another thing that humbles Mike and I. We're like, we've just so chuffed, I guess, that others want to be part of it in that way and help grow it. So, we've been on and off over the years, different parts of the States, Wales Week, New York, New England, Detroit, Ohio, British Columbia, Pittsburgh, Kansas. We've been, Wales Week Malta's been running a couple of years now with the Welsh Malta initiative. Blimey, I'm losing. Hungary, Wales Week Hungary, Paris. We were in Berlin and Copenhagen this year. We've had discussions in Switzerland. We were back with Wales Week Dublin this year, which was for the second time, which was great. Wales Week Berkshire. We've had Wales Week Essex, Wales Week Newcastle in the northeast. So they don't all happen every year because, frankly, volunteers sometimes don't have the capacity to do these things,
And is 10 years, is it a foot on the ball moment? Is it a pause for reflection? Or are you thinking about 2027?
I think it is pause for reflection, but I think there's an element of we're forcing ourselves to do it. Yeah. And I'm wondering, I don't know, maybe I need to chat further with Mike on this, whether that's partly because we just get into an automatic mode, or partly we don't want to make it overbearing that we think we're so desperate to do something particularly special to market that we can't see clearly at all, So, but by Christmas, we will be thinking of Wales Week 2027, even though we haven't had 26, because we'll be getting approaches from organisations over a year ahead,
Yeah, so while we catch our breath on this podcast, and by the way, we are delighted to have as our guest Dan Langford today. We're also pleased that Graham is sort of looking after us and helping us out with some sort of navigation and a bit of facts as well. Graham, tell us about the stones in this amazing dry stone wall.
Okay, so here we have the three different types of stone that we have in the Brecon Beacons. Well, the main three types. You've got the old red sandstone here, which is approximately 380 million years old. Then we move a bit closer and we have the limestone, which is something like 350 million years old. And then we have the millstone grit, or tuckstone, which is the more recent of the stones, and this is probably about 320 million years old. So originally, or millions of years ago, all this area would have been under a huge tropical sea. So that's the reason the only fossils you see in this are seashells and the like. Incredible. Hard to imagine now, isn't it?
Isn't it just? And I mentioned earlier some of the industrial heritage going on around us. I mean, this would have been a hive of activity, wouldn't it?
Yes, it certainly would have done, with tramways all over the place. I think there was 16 quarries up here, mostly quarrying limestone, but some quarrying rotten stone, which was used in the polishing industry down in Swansea for polishing the copper. It's very very abrasive stone, a bit like pumice stone.
And Copperopolis is what Swansea was called?
Yes, it was known as, yes.
Because of all of these opportunities. Well, look, thanks for giving us that little bit of a break.
Also, I think as we come up, we passed an old derelict building on our left, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
I believe that was a pub at one time owned by the quarry. Yeah. So the quarrymen would get paid on a Friday, go to the pub, and then the quarrymen would get all their money back.
Entrepreneurialism, see, Dan? Yeah. It's all good. Thanks very much indeed, Graham. That's really good. And it gave us the opportunity, Dan, for a little bit of a pause and a bit of a break to catch our breath. I'm feeling fighting fit now, raring to go.
Good, me too.
Yeah, good. So we were talking about Wales Week, and we talked about your time at Acorn, and of course, you left the full-time employment of Acorn. I know you had and remained associated with them, but you set up on your own. Talk about entrepreneurialism. You did your own thing for a few years, and now you've embarked on a new chapter in your career.
Yeah, so I was doing the consultancy for about 4 or 5 years, and again, frankly, I just only work with great people. Yeah. So, it was just a real joy in that sense. And one of those retained clients is the firm that I'm now working for, the Skills Centre, which is owned by a Welshman from Pembroke, who lives in London, John Howlin, and the business has an office in Cardiff, but all its work at the moment is delivered principally in London and the South East and the Midlands, but in other pockets as well of the UK. And it's the Skills Centre, and it's one of the UK's leading construction trading firms.
Oh, they'd be interested in these dry stone walls then a little bit.
They might well be, yeah. But it's a great business, and again, I guess where I came from the approach of the people that I reported to in the university in all those early years, to working with Matt and board colleagues at Acorn for 16 or so years. Again with John and other colleagues on the board and the wider senior team. I'm working with a bunch of entrepreneurial, genuine, hard-working, energising people. Yeah. And, they're just the best places to work. And it just feels like everywhere I've worked, that's what I've experienced, So we get the best out of each other. And just makes, we have tough days, don't get me wrong, there's a lot to do. And frankly, the Skills Centre's in a really privileged position where, it's there's a lot of organisations who want us to work for them and set up new training centres with them and partner with them. There's so much opportunity for us that, it means every day's pretty intense. It's just very busy, but it's a great place to be for sure.
And a great place to be. I mean, that's could be a little motto of yours, really. It's wherever you've been, you've enjoyed it. You get on well with the people. You make the best of it, and you have fun. But you also work hard, and there's a few lessons there for business in Wales to learn from.
Well, I think you've got to back yourself, and my career, I haven't, and even now, I haven't started with the best technical skill all the time, okay, but I could back myself to work hard. Yeah. So you could get over that, and if you are genuinely interested in learning and growing as you go along, which I've always been, if you're working hard, that combination means that you are developing, and you're developing in a way that's quite organic. And it's maybe only later on that you realise that you know some stuff that, is what that you didn't know that you knew.
Yeah, and you pick up along the way.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
And it's potentially by force of personality, and having character, and having that sort of that backbone.
But you see, to make that really work, if you're in the room in a business, if you're in a business with other people that apply that, that work hard and are willing to learn, and you're doing stuff together, I mean, it's just that's why I've enjoyed everywhere I've worked so much, is that you're inspired by others' behaviours and others' approach to their tasks. Absolutely.
So you love what you do. You love working with the people you've worked with. They've enabled you to grow and develop and to parallel other interests as you're going along. And you've been awarded an OBE for your services to the economy, which is a huge accolade. And do you often think, where am I going? What's the next step? Or are you content as an individual, or are you always looking for the next deal, the next opportunity?
I'm not always looking for the next deal, if I use that phrase, but I can't stand leaving an opportunity behind.
Right.
And if there's an angle that might not at first appear to be, a really good opportunity for us, I still want to explore it. I want to go round the other side of it and take another look. And I think, actually, there could be an opportunity for here. And, so I don't like leaving stuff behind. I absolutely don't like that. So
either for yourself or for others, because you're not, sometimes, I know, I've experienced firsthand, you will link people together because you think that connection might benefit.
And principally that's what I'm talking about, that, I might introduce two people together because I've been in a conversation with someone and I think, I know that will interest so-and-so, and I bring them together, and then I want to know what's happened. I want to know, or rather, I want to know that something's happened. And if it hasn't, I sometimes maybe I'm a bit too eager to say, well, did you think about this? This really could work for you, And then I want to get them back in the room together again to try and persuade them that there's an opportunity here, And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, of course. But and sometimes it's quite tiring. Yeah. And I thought, why am I doing this? I've got enough work to do. But I just hate seeing opportunities or things like that just slip,
Do you ever sit still, Dan?
Not really.
No. What do you do to occupy the hours when you're not working and thinking about bringing people together?
Sitting still in a metaphorical and a literal sense, I guess, is how I answered not really. Okay. So if I happen to be sitting still, my mind typically is whirring. Yeah. And I might end up texting someone or quickly checking an email, forwarding it, thinking, this has just sprung to mind, there's something here, I need to, whatever. So that will happen. And I mean, a typical thing, and I'm not saying this is for everyone, of course, at all. When I go on holiday, wherever I am in the world, I know that about 40 minutes a day I'm going to be doing some work, because I know as I get closer to that point, I will be thinking about it, which means it's hard for me to sit still. And once I've done it, then afterwards I'm sitting still and I can relax in a different way. But I find thinking about work and stuff, I find work relaxing in a way, So outside of that, I've got my family and certainly growing up doing so much stuff with the kids, and now they're older, doing different things with them. I collect some glass.
That's an understatement, though, isn't it, Dad? That's an understatement. You've got an amazing collection.
Yeah, well, it's an obsession, I think, is the best way of phrasing it. So, researching stuff about that and finding pieces from anywhere around the UK and being part of forums and going to fairs and shows and things. That interests me. It's not for everyone. And I'm running these days. Yeah, I'm just trying to trying to keep fit. I started getting fit a couple of years ago, so I'm just trying to keep as fit as I can now. Yeah.
But it says a lot about your personality, because we were talking off microphone just on the way up the Cribarth, and you're saying you're doing your half marathon coming soon, but you've got to your 10-mile goal, but that's not good enough, because you're now going, pushing yourself to maybe 11, the 12, the 13. You're not happy until you've achieved what you set out to achieve. Would that be fair?
Oh yeah, I mean, a long time ago, I did some marathons, and everyone was advising, don't run a marathon in your training. And I was like, no, I need to nail the marathon before I run one. And that was the way I did it. And that will happen now with this Cardiff half marathon, and I've no issues with that. I just want, that's just the way I am,
Dan, we've just had to escape the top of the Cribarth because there was a swarm of flying ants. So I think for listeners to recognise that this is a real walk, we're not just sort of sitting in the confines of a studio. But it's been brilliant so far, and I've really enjoyed chatting with you. And for those of you just joining, where have you been? And our guest is Dan Langford. Dan, you're so invested in Wales and doing the right thing for Wales and looking for opportunities for the future. Where do the opportunities for Wales lie for future success?
I think there's a couple of things, and it probably ultimately links back to a view that I mentioned earlier around something called Brand Wales. I think one of the nice things about a Welsh business culture, if you like, a Welsh business society, is despite successes in so many areas, on the whole, is still very humble. The net result of it being a bit humble is we don't shout enough. Yeah. And I wonder if we need to demonstrate a bit more confidence, maybe a bit more arrogance even, and shout a bit louder. But it seems to me that we're quite happy to be ourselves, and we don't need the attention and so on, because I think there's a cultural behavioural thing there that we have, which is a really endearing part of Wales, of Welsh people and Welsh life. But from a business point of view, I think we need to exert ourselves a bit more and be a little bit bolder, perhaps, particularly outside of Wales, and just more confidence. I think there's something I'd love to see that realise something more for the Welsh economy and for the Welsh brand generally. I mean, if you take great examples of some of our international sporting teams, the Welsh women's team that have just come back from Europe, that was fantastic strides for the Welsh brand, and the other, Commonwealth Games team and what they do for the Welsh brand, the FAW's men's team, the rugby and so on. So lots of things are happening. How do we translate that into something that's more than just a feel-good thing about Wales? How do we leverage that from an economic development point of view, from a business's point of view? And there's lots of good work happening. The community of Wales that goes out to these tournaments is really extensive now, and includes a lot of arts organisations and all sorts of things. Of course, business and political ones as well, and that's great. So, how do we support those sort of soft power generators so that they're out there even more? And then so how do we support them to do that? How does Welsh business get stuck into these organisations to enable them to do more of that? And then how do we go along the journey with them so we can leverage it and bring it back to Wales? And, Wales Week London is very much like that. Go to London, grab a slice and bring it back home. That's part of the thinking. So how do we do it? And there is a heck of a lot of good work going on. A lot of the work that through the Welsh Government, for example, there's some fantastic international relations activity and campaigns and things going. Whether they're resourced well enough, perhaps they never could be, but it'd be great to see how that becomes a priority, because what they can bring is a new aspect really for Wales. It's they can affirm or reaffirm our place on a global stage, if you like, and go out there with the confidence. Then be a bit more strident, perhaps, and say, this is Wales. This is who we are, because everywhere we go through the soft power networks, everyone always talks about Wales. We love the Welsh. We love the Welsh. Well, we can do that through business ways. But that other aspect about Brand Wales is then we've got to say yes and no very quickly when there's a deal on the table, or there's an opportunity, or a broader discussion to have about a new sector opportunity for Wales. We can't let these things go, because other countries are sharper and on it straight away. So we've got to make sure we do that straight away. And even, like I say, even if it's a no, let Brand Wales be the most important thing here, that we do things with confidence, decisively, and we're not scared. We're not scared to shout about who we are and what we do and what we've got,
And in terms of, you mentioned reaffirming brand Wales on the world stage, you going right back to the beginning of our conversation, your dad had a powerful impact on you and your life and your career. You thought you all worked for P&O in those days. What do you think he would say about what you've done and what you've achieved in your career?
God blimey. What would he say? I'm sure he'd be proud. Yeah, he certainly would be really interested. That's, absolutely. He would be really interested in all sorts of levels in what I've been doing and where I'm going and how things have gone and offering his own insight and thoughts and perspectives on those things. Absolutely. He which would just be amazing, because he was top of his game, so to be able to, like lots of people I meet on a day-to-day basis in work, I'm meeting people top of the game, but this one was also my dad, so it would have been fantastic, so yeah, I'm sure he would have been proud. He would, he was a great family man, so as well with my brothers, he would have loved all his grandchildren, and it's a shame he's not here to witness it, and it's a shame not to be able to say, Dad, see, look, I was all right in the end,
Well, Dan, you've been more than all right, and we've been delighted to have this opportunity of speaking with you. Thank you so much for being part of this podcast. If there was an audience, I would say, ladies and gentlemen, Dan Langford, but there is an audience, and perhaps they might give you a little bit of applause as they're listening to this podcast. So thank you once again.
Oh, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you.
Walking the Talk is hosted by Robert Lloyd Griffiths and created and produced by Call of the Wild, with editing support from Buffoon Media.